You are running as an independent, and independents can't make laws, can't make changes to laws, and can't even speak in the Dáil if they are not in a technical group. Why should someone vote for you or any independent instead of the likes of Lucinda Creighton or Rory Quinn, who will at least be guaranteed a position to legislate or speak out?
Well, it's not actually true, for starters. Independents can change laws if you're on a committee, which is where law is scrutinised, legislation is scrutinised really. We all know that debate doesn't happen in the Dáil. Very little debate happens in the Dáil. Even if you're within a party, it's still stitched up by the whips tell you what to speak on certain issues. I think we need to fundamentally reform the Dáil so that it does have debate and that people are talking about issues, because especially at a time of crisis, it's necessary to flesh things out and find a consensus. There's no point just being the opposition for voting against the government for something that could make a lot of sense, really. And when I'm an independent TD, I will vote for policies that make sense. It doesn't matter if it's Fine Gael bringing it in, I will still vote for the policy if it's a good policy, and I will vote against it if I disagree with it. I'm not going to leverage in with a government to get a couple of local issues just and then go along with all these policies that I would disagree with. It's about principle, and it's about taking each issue as it comes. I think that an independent can achieve a lot in government. I don't think we've seen the type of independence that I am in government before. We've seen primarily local based independence, and that's really a new departure for Irish politics. We are still a really young state, so there's no reason why there shouldn't be a shift in the dynamic of how politics work in this country. So from introducing or from working on a committee, I would hope that the government of the day would see that I have skills that they don't have and that they could benefit from my input on certain committees. I think if my voice isn't heard in the Dáil, I can get my voice heard in the media. I've shown that in the past 2.5 weeks ago I was a completely unknown candidate, and so if you don't get your voice heard in one place, you'll get it heard somewhere else. Head shop legislation didn't come in because a bunch of TDs thought it was important. It came in because it was on Joe Duffy.
Yeah, fair enough. What are your positions on abortion, on gay marriage and adoption?
Well, abortion, for starters, I'm in support of the implementation of the recent European Court of Human Rights ruling. And I think that means that it's a legislative matter now, and the Irish government has been dragging its heels repeatedly. Now they're not really forced to implement the ECHR rulings, but I think they should be, and they shouldn't be dragging their heels on it and postponing it. That's essential. With regards to gay marriage, I'm in full support of civil marriage. I think the Civil Partnership Bill was a brilliant first step, but it doesn't go far enough, particularly because of the rights of children of same-sex couples, and the fact that you're only allowed to inherit from one parent, whoever's considered your guardian or your biological parent. I think that's really important that we keep that a priority, because if we're talking about, you saw with the beginning of the Irish state, the idea of equality was a core principle, that if you're trying to build a state, and in this scenario if you're trying to rebuild a state, it's important that everyone in that state is considered equally. And at the moment that's not the case, and I think that's a disgrace in the 21st century. Regarding adoption and civil marriage, and gay adoption, I think gay couples should be equally considered for adoption. I don't see why there's any argument that there's why they shouldn't be, especially seeing as single parents can be considered for adoption. So the logic of that doesn't make sense, because at the moment you have perhaps one parent adopting the child, and then it might be within a relationship. So then you get back into the inheritance rights of the child. I think everybody should be. It's about what's important for the child, and what's important for the child is to have two loving parents. It doesn't matter what gender they are.
Okay. The final question, which I think is probably one of the tougher ones, would be to name 3 items of Budget 2011 that you would change, and exactly what your alternative would be, and then 3 items of Budget 2011 that you wouldn't change and why.
It's like a blind date. I think there was a couple of good points in the budget, and for starters, the implementation of the 1% duty on online betting, saying that they have to be subject to the same conditions as betting shops here in Ireland. So there's a lot of foreign companies that were earning, taking bets from Ireland and not paying this duty. I think that's important. I think the increased funding to Culture Ireland was a brilliant move. There was a allocation of funds from unspent funds from 2010 put into Culture Ireland. I think it was about 3 million. That's a really positive step, because that's recognising, for starters, the value of culture and what that can contribute both to the mental well-being of a country, but also economically, really, in terms of Ireland being an attractive place and seeing it as a cultural centre, which we have historically, but it's certainly been lost in recent times, and there's a huge potential in that area. Especially at a time when Irish artists are extremely exercised. There's a lot of great work being produced here, so getting an international platform for that is brilliant. The other thing, I think, is the air tax being reduced to €3 is a positive move. The idea that there's a tax on people trying to come into the country when we're then trying to encourage tourism in other areas doesn't check. It doesn't make, it's taking with one hand and giving with the other. Things that I would undo: the increase in tuition fees for third level. They increased from €1,500 to €2,000, which is, I think it's a 53 or 57% increase since the free fee scheme was introduced. I don't think we've seen a 953% increase in any other areas, and I think that's a huge barrier barrier to access to education. I think that there's been a lot of cuts that have happened in small areas that aren't necessarily headline issues, but have a huge impact. For instance, within the Department of the Environment, built heritage was cut by 77%, which that's huge. I mean, that effectively wipes out a department. And as someone on my campaign team commented yesterday, he said that's basically saying, "Sure, we'll just keep someone on the phones," I think that's really important. Built heritage is a huge part, a huge attraction in Ireland. People drive around and they're seeing all these fantastic buildings, and I think we might have screwed things up economically in the past 15 years, but our economic heritage, which goes back hundreds of years, shouldn't be sacrificed because of that. That's really important. And also, when you compare that to things like how much the planning tribunal is costing, it's costing the same as that entire department is now costing, which I think the money will be a lot better spent in the built heritage, and maybe do something like the planning tribunals in somewhere like the Shannon. Give it a purpose. Give the Shannon a purpose. Maybe the Crow Park discussions should happen in the Shannon. Maybe the tribunals should happen in the Shannon. So I think we can be smarter about how things are happening. There's also other areas that things like, how much does it cost to license Microsoft to every computer in public service? And why don't they just use Linux? Or pay an Irish software company? Effectively, it's just databases. Why don't they pay an Irish software company to design a database for their systems? And that would save huge amounts of money. Also, there's things like, when you look through the budget as well, there's things like in the HSE, it's consultancy, advisory, developmental, supervisory, regulatory bodies. Is one title, which basically to me stinks of bureaucrats and pen pushers not doing anything, and that's a huge expenditure. I think it was reduced by 17% from 82 million to just over 68.2 million. That's a lot of money, especially in an area like the HSE, which needs cutbacks. But I think that's the area that needs the cutbacks in administration. You don't need somebody telling you what the problem is in the HSE. Everybody knows that the problem is that we have too many people behind desks and not enough people on front services. And to spend just over 68 million getting someone to tell you that, I think is a poor move, and I wouldn't make such a decision were I in government.
Fair enough. We've got 8 days to go before people vote. How busy are you? Or is it like constant?
I didn't know there was this many hours in the day, and I'm very grateful to iCal for sorting my life out. It's literally on a day basis. You just look and see what am I doing in the next hour and going. I suppose from the outset, when I decided to do this, it was just shortly after Christmas, and I knew that we were thinking March 11th was the election, but I knew that I had a month to build the campaign and effectively to build the infrastructure of a political party around you, because being an independent, not running on local issues, you need advisors on lots of areas. So the first month was building the campaign, and the second month is running the campaign. But it's not even a month; it's it's just just under 4 weeks actually.
And did you decide, or was it that people said to you, look, I think you'd be really good at this? Because I'm familiar with your work in Exchange Dublin and things like that. So
people said it to me, of course, and I ridiculed the idea at first, as I've always ridiculed the idea of party politics and what can be achieved in the Dáil. But the more I thought about it, and the criticism that I'd been saying for the past number of months is that the wrong type of people seem to be attracted to politics. And I looked at the youth wings of the political parties, which are all guys for starters, and I just saw that these guys have wanted to be politicians 5 years ago. The fact that they're young means nothing. And if that's the future, if they're the future leaders in this country, I'd consider leaving as well. So I thought that the only way that that's going to change is by putting your money where your mouth is and standing and putting yourself forward for election. And I know that I bring a different experience to the table than what a career politician brings. I don't want to do this forever, but I certainly think it's probably one of the most fulfilling things that you could do in the service of your country.
You've got a very big fundraiser coming up on Saturday night with some very cool artists. So
yes,
plug that.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's we're doing it in the Button Factory. We have Heathers who used to play gigs out of my house, and we have Heathers, we have Jape, we Fight Like Apes, we have the Minutes, and we have a DJ set from Adebisi Shank. And that's only you can get tickets in exchange for a €10 donation from entertainment.ie. Or it'll be €15 on the door as well. So it'd be really amazing to pack the place out with that, and it is actually a stellar lineup.
It is, it's very good. Dylan, thank you very, very much for your time. I know you've got a hell of a day in front of you. People can find out about you on
DylanHaskins.ie @DIYLin, and vote Dylan Haskins #1 on Facebook.
There we go. Thanks so much. Cheers.